like you were saying, I have two different companies now. Upgrade Partners Capital is a fund of funds where I'm a passive investor. We've invested about 600 units, but I also have a new company called Cowboy Capital. My partner and I, we have bought 419 units since September of 2024 across 4 different assets. And we mainly focus on Montana, Idaho, Utah, which is our backyard. And then we just bought a big deal in San Marcos, Texas.
Welcome, Real Estate Hustlers Podcast. I'm your host, Josh Appelman. Today we're joined with Joe at Render Connect, founder of Upgrade Partners Capital, has invested in 600 plus apartment units nationwide with deep expertise in asset management, underwriting, and capital raising. Joe, we appreciate you coming on the show today. If you could let the listeners know a little bit more about yourself.
Yeah, thanks, Josh. Excited to be here. Appreciate your podcast and how you're bringing a lot of awareness to those getting in the business and how to grow and scale. I know it's been very beneficial as I've, grown as well. So yeah, quick one too about myself. So I've been in multifamily for about a decade now and I got started out even before real estate, right? Doing ranching and farming. For those of you who are watching, I'm wearing a cowboy hat. Got into then construction with my dad and pretty much was a blue collar labor guy all the way up until 2018. Trying to think, how old was I at 2018? I'm 34 now. It's 2025. So 7 years ago? So 2028 roughly. And I started getting into multifamily just because we kind of fell into it. My wife and I needed a place to live while we were going to college. We were getting ready to have a baby and we're living at our in-law at her parents' house. And so we bought a duplex and did a house hack for 5 years and used the equity to buy a fourplex and kind of, that was a 2016, got into that. And since then I've done multiple small multifamily fix and flips. I've kind of been blessed from day one. I've only ever done multifamily. I've never done any single family, but I've used, wholesaling, fix and flip, buy and hold. And kind of fast forward to now, like you were saying, I have two different companies now. Upgrade Partners Capital is a fund of funds where I'm a passive investor. We've invested about 600 units. But I also have a new company called Cowboy Capital. You can see on my coffee mug. My partner and I, we have bought 419 units since September of 2024 across 4 different assets. And we mainly focus on Montana, Idaho, Utah, which is our backyard. I'm in eastern Idaho. And then we just bought a big deal in San Marcos, Texas. So that's kind of a quick.
Tell us the mechanicals behind it. Are you using third-party property management, and then how are you closing these deals?
We are doing third-party property management on every deal. That's kind of as you're growing, you kind of have to do that. We're working on becoming vertically integrated in the next couple of years. We're just not there yet. So every property has a different manager, which is really good too. I think it gives us different exposure to different systems and operations and what we appreciate about some that do and, really dislike about what another one does.
What are those?
What's that?
What are some of those differences that you've picked up on?
Oh man. So property in Boise, is a company that we really, really enjoy. They are so Commercial Northwest, I'm happy to do a shout out to them. We bought a 48 unit in June of this year, and they're they communicate really aggressively and they over communicate, which is how we like to, do with our investors. And they have kind of tailored the entire experience to our needs. And so they've completely redone their reporting to us than what they typically do. So they've retailored and have been really flexible on the communication and fees and just reporting, right? Whereas another company in Montana where we own a deal, they they're kind of like stuck in their own ways, right? And they're not flexible really at all. And it's kind of funny because like with property managers, like you're their boss, right? But you're a partner. And so you should act more as a, like, I would prefer to work more as a partnership, which is how I feel with Boise. Then with these guys, it's like, no, it's their way or not. And so we kind of just have to deal with it because, they're still the best option, the most affordable option. And they own the market share there as well. But like reporting and the way they've done, renovations, it's they try and take a lot more of the decision making upon them, and they're not used to hands-on operators. That they're used to way more passive, owners. So
Well, as far as like paint colors, flooring type, flooring expense, or I guess just baseline expenses or on materials or
yeah, especially with renovations, like they went and spent like 5 grand to go and pressure wash our buildings like a month ago, and they're like, it was in our contract that we could go do that. I'm like, cool, but like still communicate that with me so that I can plan and budget for it, right?
sure.
Like we're trying to sell the property right now, and like a $5,000 capex item doesn't really help, when we weren't even expecting it, you know and then there was another like $1,300. It was like the gutter clean outs, and we're like, hey, we know that these need to be done, but like, give us some heads up so we can tell the broker, so it's not just like a shock factor, you know. So
Got it.
just more communication is always the key. I feel like.
I think that is the big push of being vertically integrated too, though. They're spending your money without authorization, and if you're vertically integrated, you're pushing harder on leases and you're squeezing expenses. That is a huge
Yeah.
upper level advantage for sure.
Well,
Uh,
and the other thing too is one thing I didn't mention is in my upbringing of getting to where I am today, from doing duplex, fourplex to, the biggest deal we bought us 292 units in Texas, is I work for a property management company. And so I've got a pretty good foundation in property management, right? And so I've told my partner multiple times, like, hey, if we refinance this, if we do this, like, I want to run this because I can by myself with a VA can run this better than these guys can. But that's something I really want to do. But then it comes back to a factor of, okay, well, what's your time worth? And
yeah,
you make a
that's
couple
get
extra
stuck in the
grand.
weeds.
Yeah, so it's probably not worth it for the additional increase in NOI because it's still performing really well. We just have to deal with what we have at the moment.
Yeah, I think it's more of a force your hand. If you deal with a terrible property manager, there's no one else in the market, then you have no choice but to go in and take operations over. But if everything's being ran like it should, I mean, the larger the property, economies of scale, you get better caliber of a property manager too.
Yeah,
So
yeah, and that's
yes,
true. This one's only 54 units, so it's
yeah,
like once we can cross that 75, 80, then we have these bigger companies that would definitely take it on. But the other caveat to that is like their payroll is going to be significantly, double, triple what it is now. So
yeah,
we have that to kind of consider as well.
scattered site managers are a lot tougher for sure.
Yeah.
Um, So tell us, so you got into, you were doing construction, labor, and then tell us your first deal that you did your smaller ones, but your first big deal. Tell us about that.
Oh yeah, first big deal. That was a doozy. So 2021 was the first one. You can imagine anybody who's been in the industry like, 21, that sucks. Like right between COVID, like stuck right between COVID and when interest rates went absolutely bonkers, right? They went double, tripled overnight. So we bought a 24 unit in Brigham City, Utah, that we turned into a 32 unit. So it was a 1951 built property, which is really, really old with, it's all original. And we figured out that with our zoning and our density that we could add 8 more units on the property. So what we did is, of the 24 units, half of those units were 1,300 square foot 3 beds, right? So, and 4 of them were on the main floor. So we cut 4 3 beds in half and made 8 ones. So we gained 4 units there. And then in the basement, they had, I think, a dozen. They had like the washer and dryer hookup, or the washer and coin ops. There we go. They had the coin op and like a dozen storage units. And so we redesigned that whole basement, and luckily their windows were already egress, and we built a 2-bedroom in there, and there were 4 of those storage units, so we added 4 more units there. So we did more of like a internal reconstruction, right? And with this property being 1951 build, everything had to be redone, right? Especially if you're adding more units like this. So we budgeted $1.5 million, right, in renovation, which is like 50K a unit, give or take, right, on 32 units. By the end of the project, we ended up spending about 100,000 a unit.
Oh wow, that's
Um,
man. Okay, so tell us about the huge miss.
it was so where it was like mine and a couple other of my partners, like first really big deals. We highly underestimated the cost of the skeletons behind the wall, right? And because we ended up doing new plumbing, new electrical throughout. Like we had to go to the city and get like a whole new like electrical transformer installed, right? We redid the main line, the water main. We did the parking lots, the roof, the furnaces, the HVAC condensers, kitchens, bathrooms, like down to the studs in multiple units. And the part where we really missed the boat on that as far as our budget goes, and this is a really good lesson for any of you out there getting into the industry and wanting to get into kind of the renovation aspect, is when we were getting bids for the renovation, we got like 2 bids that were really close to each other from the third party, like general contractors, that had experience in bigger scope of works like this, or scopes of work. There we go. And they had budgeted like $2.5 million, and ours was only $1.5 million. And so they're like, that was the biggest thing that we should have done differently, right? Is we should have listened to those that had like more experience than us when we were getting bids, right? We had multiple people to back that number up, and we decided, hey, we're going to take the $1.5 million and work with some other contractors that we have relationships with, and kind of sub it out ourselves. That was great and dandy until about 6 months in, when we found out so it was 2 buildings that were 12 units initially each. We had to completely evict, or non-renewal one entire building, right? So no income whatsoever coming in. And we found out that this contractor only had the capability and capacity to do a couple of units at a time, right? And it got really messy, really hairy, and we kind of got taken advantage of by this contractor, and we lost. We paid money that we ultimately lost to this contractor. And it's about that time too that interest rates went from our 5% up to 10%, and we kept finding more skeletons kind of behind the wall of, because like when you're dealing with these older properties, you have to do asbestos remediation, and we had asbestos insulation on pipes that we had to do a lot of, and that was a really long project. And like we replaced all the windows that had lead-based paint, and so that's more expensive to take out, to dispose of, and to replace. And so just like multiple factors that we could have hedged that at the beginning, had we gone with and trusted more of the contractor that that told us that it was going to be like $1 million more. So
I think I would have still went your route if you only spent 100 over the 1.5. You're at 1.6 versus, you would have given away another $900,000 to the other GC. It's a lot of brain damage. It seems like you took the hard path forward. You had a lot of learning lessons, but you still came out ahead.
Yeah, we did come out ahead. I still wonder if it was worth it still, because like my partners and I, like where we had to GC it essentially, like we showed up 3 to 5 days a week. to swing the hammer ourselves, right? And especially where I lived, only my partners lived about an hour and a half away. I was like 30, 45 minutes, also with a construction background, right? Showed up 3 to 5 days a week, swinging the hammer, working with the subs to make sure everything was done as it should have been. And, sometimes, I remember nights with one of the guys where, I mean, we were drinking Red Bulls all night long to get our certificate of occupancy, you know, and just making sure everything was teed up. But at the end of the day, we sold that deal. We bought it for 2.05 million. We sold it for 6.25, and we're able to make our investors whole. We gave them 100% return of capital. There wasn't much return on capital, but we were grateful that we could get a full return of capital.
You bought it for, well, you had a pretty good delta there.
Yeah. And it would have been great if our construction costs would have been so astronomically higher.
Yeah.
We would
Well,
have made some money, but we didn't make any money on it.
well, I mean, a lot of some compensation is based on experience too, because now you know what you're not going to do in the future.
Oh, absolutely.
So whether it was monetary or by the lesson, it was still there was payments made.
Yeah, and I completely agree with that. I didn't, like I said, we didn't make any money on this deal, but the lessons that I learned, the new, things that we will not do going forward, and how we get bids from contractors and validating them and or verifying those bids, and like with debt too. And I think partners is a big thing when you're going into this as well. Like, you got to have the same values. And there was a ton of lessons learned that I've implemented going into the new business of Cowboy Capital that I feel is what has really helped us be able to, do 4 deals in pretty much a 15-month time frame when there's not a lot of people doing deals right now.
Yeah, no, there's definitely there's still deals being done, but I think a lot of people are waiting for the market to keep on doing what it's doing. Cap rates are going up, market is softening, and if you're able to close, you're able to perform, then you're going to get the deal will reward you. So it's a great time to buy. It really is.
Yep.
It's got a I think next year is going to be a huge opportunity.
Yeah,
We'll
we're
see.
looking forward to it.
So. All right, cool. What are some other learning lessons that you've learned on your journey so far that the listeners can take away?
Yeah. So as we kind of talked about initially, like a lot of your listeners are wanting to figure out how to get into the game, because like multifamily seems like, I know when I got started into it, I was driving semi. I drove semi from 2015 to 2018, trying to learn how to get into bigger multifamily. Like, I'd always dreamed about it. And I limited myself a lot because I'm like, I drive semi. I'm going to college at the same time. I have a very young family. Like, how can I afford to get into apartment complexes, right? And there's probably a lot of people that fall into that same mindset. And, what I like to explain to people wanting to get into it, like, how can I do it? And the easiest thing that I can give you, like, if you want, like, how do you call it, the silver bullet, right? What's the silver bullet? It's, one step at a time, and having a vision of who you want to be and what you want to create, right? I've been in a decade now, and I remember when I was driving semi, it was probably 2016, late 2017 now, because I had bought a fourplex, and I was talking to my partner, and I said, Darren, one day I'm going to buy large apartment complexes. And in my mind, large apartment complexes was like 50, 100 units plus, right? Anything's big over a fourplex at that point. And so I had that long-term vision, but it took work every single day to get here. Now, I'm going to give you kind of my 5-step process of how to get into some deals, right? So in any deal, there's 5 things that are needed. 1, time, right? Time is the most valuable resource. Time to go out and find the deals, time to just do the daily work, right? Second is knowledge. Do you have the knowledge of how to, underwrite, to put a pro forma together, to get construction bids, to get lender term sheets, to talk to property managers, right? Third is relationships. What relationships do you have? You have existing relationships with all those service providers I already talked about that you need on a deal, right? Do you have relationships with money or credit, right? That's a third. Number four goes into credit and credibility. So on every deal, you need to be able to have like a net worth and liquidity to get a loan, right? And also credibility goes back to your track record. Do you have a track record? And the fifth one is capital or money, right? To down payment, CapEx, reserves, working capital. You need all five of those things to do a deal. Now, what I would ask you is the same thing that somebody, had told me is like, do you have $1 million to go put down on that 20plex? No, I got $2,000 to my name. Cool. Do you know somebody who might in your network? Yes, I probably do. Cool. Go talk to that guy. So what I would tell you to do is figure out, of these five things, what are one or two or maybe even three things that you have where you can go add value to somebody doing what you want to do. That's the quickest and easiest way for you to get into the game, right? Is to find somebody that is doing what you want to do, go add value to them, even if you don't get paid. I'm a firm believer in the mindset of the apprentice, or not mindset, but the how do you call it, Josh? The apprenticeship, right? I'm trying to think of the word here, but when I really wanted to learn multifamily, I decided to go be kind of an apprentice for like 3 years. So from 2018, when I got out of driving semi, to 21, when I bought my first deal, I went and worked for people. So I did the property management gig, I managed an 80 unit LIHTC property, made like 24 grand a year. I mean, that's pretty much for free, right? And I got thrown into the fire. That property had high vacancy, high delinquency, drugs and crime, cockroaches. And within 8 months, we got that bad boy like restabilized with lots of good stories to tell, including, doing a sting operation on my maintenance guy for, dealing meth and doing meth in the maintenance room, right? You gain experience by doing. And then for the next couple of years, I went and worked for a couple of different operators in Austin, in Vegas, in Utah, doing the full cycle of a deal, from underwriting or finding deals, underwriting, doing due diligence, going under contract, purchasing, asset management, to dispositions, right? So, and I got paid very little for doing all of that, right? To like when we were finding deals and cold calling and all that, like I didn't get paid unless we found a deal. You kill what you eat, right? And so what I would tell if anybody who's listening, like if you can do this, go out and add value to somebody who's doing what you want to do, and add a tremendous amount of value to them. Like the Vegas group, I was just really getting started into it, started learning about like SOPs. And so I hired my own VA, even though I wasn't getting paid much, hired my own VA, had him help me build out an SOP of everything that I was doing, from, because for them, I was sourcing deals. I was talking to brokers and doing high level underwriting, and then sending it to them for their approval on go or no, on do we offer, do we not. And so I built out a whole SOP deck. And when I left to go work for a developer, I gave them all of that, and they were like, this is really freaking cool. And they sent me a couple pieces of acquisition fees on a couple deals that I was a part of, right? I didn't finish with them, but I was a part of. But I had value to them, and I'm really good friends with them to this day, right? So go find somebody that you can add value to, and offer your time, knowledge, relationships, credit, or money, whatever those are, right? You only need, this is a team sport, right? And Josh, I'm sure you would agree with that. Like, this is not a self-made game. This is very much a team-made game. And go find that team, or bring a couple people together and create one. but I would recommend finding somebody who's already somewhat established and add value to them. It'll help you cut the learning curve.
Yeah. No, you hit everything on the head. I like that. It's create your own team or go and deploy yourself into an existing team, and that's just like assets. Create value. Anything that you can create value on or in is how you make money. That's the secret sauce. Show up and create value.
Yeah.
Very cool. Tell you what, Joe, if somebody wants to get a hold of you, learn more about you, your company, possibly invest with you, how can they reach out?
Yeah. So hit me up on any of the socials. Facebook. I'm more on Instagram, LinkedIn. You can check out my website, cowboycapital.us, for the direct acquisitions that we're purchasing, or upcfund.com is the fund of funds. You can email me at joe@cowboycapital.us. Yeah, and reach out. I love building relationships. So if you want to just chat about what we're doing, or you need other tips and tricks on how to get into the game, if you're wanting to, overcome whatever limitation you have in your mind, hit me up. Love to talk.
Awesome, Joe. Very cool. I appreciate your time. Look forward to following you. We'll talk soon. Thank you.
Thanks, Josh.
All right. Bye.